and welcome to TNCRadio.LIVE, and this is Truckers Life Radio. I'm Tom Kelly, and here's your host, Ron Fraser. Welcome, and this is Tom Kelly with TNCRadio.LIVE, and I'm joined today by Ron Fraser. Ron is actually going to be the host of this program. It's a brand new program for us. First episode, and Ron, wonderful to have you with us. I'm really glad you've agreed to do this. Tell us a little bit about who is Ron Fraser.
Tom, Ron Fraser is an only child, grew up in Western New York, and I came from a family of General Motors workers, and I went on to go through high school, went to Bible college, graduated from Bible college, met my wife, got married, went into the ministry, got out of the ministry, kind of disillusioned, Tom. You know, sometimes that happens, but realized that that wasn't exactly the place I should be. I spent some time in the corporate world doing joint venture work and setting up my own corporation through a joint venture. And then God called me into men's ministry, Tom. I had just an exciting opportunity not only to do my own work when I left the corporate world, which I left, by the way, because I found I was losing touch with my boys. I also went into volunteer men's ministry and got tied into a network of men's ministry organizations around the country that were doing conferences and training and helping develop leaders all across the country, and really got my heart and soul into that, and was moving along in that pathway when along came the opportunity to become president of TFCGlobal, which, by the way, is the largest chaplaincy organization in the world to the trucking community. And so got excited about that opportunity because I had a real heart for the trucking industry and for our professional drivers and their families. So that's my background in a nutshell.
You know, Ron, as I get older, I don't regret the choices I made so much as I just wonder sometimes what would have happened if I would have made different choices in my past.
I think we all do, Tom.
Yeah.
And we all have made mistakes. I shared with you, I came into the corporate world and was very much driven by the monetary aspect of being in the corporate world, and realizing that what my family needed most was not a financial provider. They need a husband and a dad.
Yep.
And I'm the father of two boys, and that became a real struggle for my wife and I. And so I had to reevaluate where I was going, the pathway I was taking. And that's why I jumped from the corporate world into kind of an entrepreneurial world. And that's what took me into men's ministry. And that was just totally the opposite direction that I thought I was going to go. But God knew better than I did. And so we went that direction, and it has been an exciting ride. I tell my wife every day, Tom, every day is a new adventure. And I just love the opportunity of seeing what's going to happen the next day.
Yeah, really. And if you let God help you out a little bit, which I sometimes have a hard time doing, Ron, and we'll talk about that over time too, but because I want to do it my way, and I think things should be this fast, and I think that that can get a fella in trouble. I was like you; I chased the money up and just blew it. I think maybe there should be a law that you can't have the money until you have wisdom, and a man with no wisdom and lots of money is only going to get himself in trouble.
Yeah, I think that's why the Bible calls it foolishness.
Yeah.
And it does get us in trouble. It's not having money, but it's the love of that money and what it does that often motivates us in the wrong direction. And so hopefully, we've learned from our past experiences and we look to the future with a brighter hope. in the sense that we have opportunity now to share those experiences. You talk about your grandkids. I have 2 boys and 8 grandkids,
Wow.
two of which were adopted, but very honestly, they're part of our family.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping and just praying every day for the opportunity to put into their lives and help them see a different direction that I chose.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to impart your wisdom now, that you've been through it all, and if you can, help them avoid to make the same mistakes that you made in the past. And it, that's all we can do is share what we have. Hey, Ron, we're going to take our first break, and when we come back, I want you to tell us a little bit more about what is TFC. What are its founding principles? What does it do? All that kind of good stuff. So we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. You're listening to TNCRadio.LIVE. This is the Trucker's Life. Welcome back to TNCRadio.LIVE. This is Trucker's Life Radio. Really happy to have you all with us this evening. Ron, we were talking before we went to break that you're now working with the group TFC. What is TFC and what is your role there?
TFCGlobal was formerly Transport for Christ International, and we are the largest chaplaincy organization to the trucking community in the world. And that means that we are in the truck stops. Our chaplains are in the truck stops. They're in the trucking companies, and they are in 5 countries overseas. Zambia being one of them, where we have a school and ministry center. So the whole thing behind what we do is we provide chaplaincy for the trucking community. Now, many people think that that's more of a evangelistic, you're there preaching, teaching kind of thing. That's part of it, but that's not the whole of it. What's going on in our trucking industry today, Tom, is there is a lot happening with our professional drivers. They're dealing with physical issues, they're dealing with psychological and behavioral issues, they're dealing with spiritual care issues. And so what TFC does is it provides highly trained chaplains that can work with the trucking community, not just the driver, not just the truck stop, but the whole trucking community, to provide physical care, to provide psychological and behavioral care, to provide spiritual care. And we do that through various ways. We have programs at our location that do Celebrate Recovery. We have a whole initiative within our organization that deals with human trafficking and human trafficking awareness, which is something we'll probably get into sometime on this program. We have divorce care, and we have counselors who are connected to our organization. We have apps where our drivers can go to find help if there is an addiction issue. We have twice a year, Tom, we do a retreat weekend, which is really an initiative, or it's a intensive to help those guys who are addicted to certain things, whether that be a chemical addiction or a physical addiction. We give them a place to break away for 3-4 days, work with some counselors, and find the help they need. And so we are a chaplaincy organization. We do a ministry of presence, but we're there to help with the physical, the psychological, behavioral, and spiritual needs of the driver.
So help me understand just a little bit. If I'm driving down the road and I'm feeling a spiritual need, whatever it is, or maybe it's just a crisis I'm going through. It's very easy for a driver to be going down the road and get bad news from his wife that Johnny's flunking math, or Sally's having inappropriate relations, or whatever, something that can be very upsetting for a driver. Can I find out where the nearest chaplain is and schedule an appointment or something like that? Is that how it works?
Yeah, what happens is this: you can go online and you can connect with us through the website, which is TFCGlobal.org, or you can, we are at truck stops all across the United States. So we have a magazine, an international magazine that goes out that's called the Highway News, that you can pick up in most truck stops and locations. And it will give a listing of where our mobile chapels are, where what we call our faith life centers are. You can call the office and we will connect you with a chaplain or a counselor, or you can connect with our mobile app, and that app will take you to resources that will help you. So we have multiple ways that you can reach us. And in doing that, we then can speak with you. Our chaplains can determine what your need is, and then we can direct you to the right resource. And our chaplains are trained to do that. They're trained to provide that kind of care.
Fantastic. And for those of you who are listening live online, you can connect to that through TNCRadio.live. We got some links out there for you, including the link for the app. Also, you can connect to TFC Global via the app. You can download that app from our website. Also on the TNCRadio.live app. If you're listening to us there, there's a link where you can connect in to TFC Global from there. And if you're listening to us on the podcast, just check the podcast information, and we have links there to TFC Global and all sorts of good things. So check that as well. So lots of good ways for people to be able to reach in to TFC Global. Ron, tell me a little bit about the chaplains. Well, you said they're well trained. Who are they? What are they like?
Our chaplains, Tom, typically come from a pastoral background. They come from a trucking background, many of whom have Bible-based education, or they have a master's degree in counseling. They come from various fields. What's really unique is we have drivers who now become pastors who are still drivers. And so we have guys who have come into the ministry that have both the driving experience and the pastoral experience. And so they are well equipped to deal with the trucking community. I think that's what's unique about us, Tom, is we are one of the few organizations that ministers to the trucking community that has a history in trucking. And so our chaplains not only have an educational background when they come in, but we run them through a 20-hour intensive training course that they have to get through to be able to be licensed and credentialed and even ordained to do chaplaincy. And then we have a whole continuing education process that allows them to further that education in a number of ways, but one is through the colleges that we are connected with that will give them credit from what we're training them, provide them credit to go on and get a master's or a doctorate degree. And so we work real hard to make sure that our chaplains are as trained as best as they can be for the type of chaplaincy that they're doing. And we feel we've set the bar high as far as a training program. So our guys in the field are great guys. They love the Lord. They love the trucking community. They're there to serve. They see all kinds of things going on, and they're prepared to handle whatever they run into. So we have a great group of chaplains.
So is there a difference between, say, a chaplain and a pastor?
That's a conversation for a whole hour, Tom. I'll tell you what, yeah, there is. A pastor ministers to a specific group of people, a flock.
Okay.
And a pastor has a little more opportunity to be evangelistic in his outreach, whereas a chaplain is one who crosses all denominational lines. He cares for people from all educational and religious backgrounds, denominational backgrounds, and racial backgrounds. And so he has to be able to be there to listen, to encourage, and to minister to that person right where they're at. The pastor doesn't have that. He typically is linked to a denomination. He's linked to a specific approach to ministry. He's not crossing those borders of ministry as far as denominational lines or crossing educational lines or even racial lines. And so, yeah, when you talk about a pastor, our guys can't go into a trucking company, can't go into a truck stop and just begin to evangelize. They're there, they listen, they care for the need. I will say there is a similarity in that both a pastor doing ministry in a church and a chaplain both have a responsibility, a biblical responsibility, to care for the physical need of the people as well as the spiritual need, and mainly because the Bible teaches us often if you don't care for the physical need, you're not going to be able to give them the opportunity to hear the gospel. They're not going to want it because they know that all you want to do is evangelize, and you're not really caring about the situations they're in. And our drivers face a lot of stuff, Tom.
Yeah,
Like I
sure.
said, there are so many areas of need in their lives right now that it makes it difficult, for our drivers to be on the road today.
We have just about a minute left before we have to go to the next break, Ron. What I want to do when we come back is I want to talk a little bit about the goals of this program, what we're both looking for, what we think the drivers would like to hear. And I want to ask you one more question about the time when when is it time to talk to a chaplain? Because can I feel comfortable just dropping in? Can I, there are different times where we might not know the best time to reach out to somebody. You don't have to wait till you're in trouble, right?
Not at all.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I want to talk about that when we come back and talk about what the goals for this particular program is and why people should come back and listen every week. You're listening to TNCRadio.LIVE. This is the Trucker's Life. Welcome back to TNCRadio.LIVE. This is Trucker's Life Radio. Ron, we were talking just before the break about the way things work as far as having the chaplaincy and chaplains around at different truck stops and that kind of thing. I know sometimes there's a need to want to talk about spiritual things, but the truth is it's not really a crisis. It's just, hey, I'd like to meet one of these chaplains, see what they're about, that kind of stuff. If people want to do that, is that a pretty easy thing to arrange?
Yeah, it is, Tom. We're one of the few trucking-related chaplaincy organizations that provides multiple ways of communicating with us, provides multiple opportunities to reach out and speak with a counselor or speak with a chaplain. And as we shared earlier, they can do that through the app, through calling us, through picking up the magazine. Tom, they can even write us. We got a letter this past week from a young lady. I won't give you her name, but she was sharing that she'd been a professional truck driver since 2015. And she made some poor decisions when she was home in April of 2020 and went back on the road and got called into a company yard, and she was working for a specific company, and DOT was there, and she was tested, and she tested positive for cocaine.
Oh.
And she goes on to share her story with us, and how difficult her life has been. She sadly, she was raped in the May of 2020, and relapsed and went back into a fentanyl addiction. But she wrote us a letter and asked us for help. And she asked us for locations where she could find some assistance with a Celebrate Recovery type of program, which we offer at our locations. And she asked for some counseling help. And so through that letter, we're able to communicate with her and be able to help her. And what's exciting to me, Tom, is, I'm sure some of our listeners have their own story to share. And we'd really love to hear that. We'd like to hear from them because this is what this program's about. At least that's, our hopes and our prayers is that, what this program should be doing is talking into the lives of our professional drivers and their families and helping them through some of the difficult things that they're facing right now.
Yeah, and we want to hear from them. Let's do this. If somebody out there who's listening right now says, "Yeah, I want to hear more about this. I want to share my story," feel free to send an email to TruckersLife at TNCRadio.live. That's TruckersLife at TNCRadio.live, and we'll give that information out again near the end of the program. But Ron, I wanted to go back to this young lady that you were talking about. When you get this kind of information from somebody, what's your first reaction? Are you bewildered? Are you surprised, or is this the kind of thing that in the role that you're in, you see these kinds of things come across your desk from time to time?
Tom, I wish I could say to you that it was a surprise, because that would relate to the fact that we don't see much of it. But that's not the case. I will say, when I first came on board as president and CEO of TFCGlobal, the first one I got just about caused me to fall out of my chair. But then I began to see the repetitiveness, how this is repeated over and over and over again. And it's no longer a surprise. It's a heartache, because we know there's such a struggle going on out there. Our guys, as far as the physical care aspect of their lives, they've got an excess workload. They're dealing with chronic stress, disrupted sleeps. The trucker isn't exactly the most respected guy on the road, which we're trying to change that image and help that image become something more. But these guys have poor access to health care. They've got operational costs, erratic schedules. We just know that the type of work that they're doing is creating burnout and depression, marital issues, sexual addiction, diminished ability to think, anxiety, family issues. And that's what makes me excited, Tom. That's what gets me excited about this program, because we want to be there to help. And when we read a letter like this, we connect with that person. We begin to put them in a pathway that will help them get through the issue that they're dealing with, and we continue to stay with them until we know that they're well cared for.
And I think that's important. And I think one of the things that, and we've talked about this in other times, Ron, not on the air, but you're not going to say anything to a chaplain or writing a note back to TFC, or just a direct email to whomever, that they're going to go, "Well, I'm shocked. I'm just shocked. I'm not going to respond to this," or that I find that behavior offensive. Or that's why the guys from TFC are here. They know, and Ron, you've seen it. Truckers face an amazing amount of temptation on a day-to-day basis. And there's a lot of frustration that can go with the job. And like you said, they don't get the respect they deserve. It seemed like things were better when they were bringing in the toilet paper.
Yep.
Or everybody was happy to see him then, but after the pandemic subsided some, people went back to not, the only kind of thinking they give to a driver is he was too slow getting on the highway and they couldn't get over, and so they had to wait for an extra 10 seconds in their life. And, they were frustrated about it because they had to come off cruise control. And a lot of times that's the only thought people give to a driver.
Yeah, and what's sad, Tom, is I think what we have missed in our country today, our culture, is we have given so much priority to essential workers, and yet our drivers, if we had time, I'd tell you a story about a driver who would stop home. His wife would leave his meal and his change of clothes out on the porch, and he would pick them up and leave, not being able to go into the house, not wanting to affect them with the whole COVID thing. There's story after story like this of our professional drivers who are moving product across the country, and they are essential businesses or they're essential workers, and they didn't get that respect. And so our hope, not only at TFC Global, because our organization is here, it's here because of the needs we see, but our hope with TFC Global and the radio program with TruckersLife Radio is to elevate the opinion that our culture and the secular world, non-trucking community has about these guys on the road and these ladies on the road, because there is a good percentage of women in the driver's seat. So, hopefully, we will become a place where drivers feel comfortable to come and say, I've got this issue, or I'd like to talk about this, or I'd like to hear what you have to say about this. And so I do hope they, connect with us, Tom, at Truckers Life at TNCRadio.LIVE. I hope they tune in. I hope they write us. I hope we get to hear some of their stories, because these stories need to be told.
Absolutely, and we want to hear the stories. And like I said, don't be afraid of your story. You're not going to offend. And you're not going to shock either. It's one of those things that this wouldn't exist. TFC wouldn't exist if everybody was already perfect.
Oh, that's right.
Right?
I used to have an old boss in the corporate world that said there wouldn't be any need for managers if there was nothing to manage.
Right.
There would be no need for TFC Global chaplains and counselors if everything was perfect in the trucking community. But we know that's not the case. And so there really is nothing that can shock us. We have begun to prepare for almost anything. And in this culture, obviously that can mean anything. Years ago, it was maybe not as critical as it is today to look at situations of suicide and shootings and all of these things, but they're all happening.
Yes.
Tom, they're all happening, and we need to know that we can care for those needs, and not just the driver, the mom who's home with her kids and just frustrated at trying to manage them while her husband's on the road for 3 weeks out of 4. We've got availability to help those moms. We have programs in place to help the women of drivers or the spouses of drivers who are at home, and provide them with resources that they can utilize every day.
Fantastic. All right. Hey, we're going to take our final break. And when we come back, I got a couple of quick questions for you too, Ron, about some of the dilemmas that drivers find themselves in, and how TFC may be able to help, and how this program may be able to help them going forward. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. You're listening to TNCRadio.LIVE. This is the trucker's life. Welcome back to TNCRadio.LIVE. This is Truckers Life Radio. I'm Tom Kelly along with Ron Fraser. Ron, we've been talking for this hour about what this program is and what we're trying to accomplish, what we're going to be doing going forward. Ron, let me ask you this. The suicide rate among truckers is one of the highest of any industry. We have fully a third of the drivers are former vets. I don't know if you know this or not, Ron. We lose 22 vets on average a day to suicide.
Yep.
And that includes drivers as well. As a matter of fact, we had an incident during the last big inspection week where, and I believe if I remember correctly, this happened just outside of Louisville, where a driver, he wasn't in trouble, and his truck wasn't in trouble, and he was not carrying contraband or anything like that. But he chose that moment when the officer walked around the truck and then walked up to the door, and as he got ready to tap on the door, the driver killed himself.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was kind of a weird set of circumstances. All the audio was recorded of this, and shots fired, because of course at first the cop doesn't understand, is he being shot at or what's happening? Then he realizes no, he's the driver isn't harming anybody but himself. You have to wonder. And there's no good answer, right? Even if we could bring him back and talk to him right now, there's no answer that we would fully understand and say, oh, well, that was a good reason. It's very difficult in those moments to understand what the person's thought process was and why did he choose that particular moment. Obviously, he chose that moment because there were witnesses. Others who lose their lives by suicide often do it, quietly someplace, way off from everybody else. It was a shocking thing. The cops were very upset, and like I said, all of this was in a way accidentally recorded as it all went down. And I've listened to that. We did not play it on the radio. We found it too upsetting to really listen to, to put that out there. But that's not the first time something like that has happened. It's not the last. But for people who are feeling like they're on the edge, is TFC a good place to start to get some help?
Well, most definitely. Like I said, our chaplains are trained to deal with that. Tom, what we see in the industry today is this. I shared that the physical issue with our drivers, part of it is excess workloads, part of it is chronic stress, part of it is disrupted sleep behavior. But what that does is that physical turns into psychological. When these guys face those kind of issues, then all of a sudden you begin to see burnout, you begin to see anxiety creep in, you begin to see depression creep in. And the trucking community has one of the highest issues of depression in the country. And all of a sudden, all it takes is a trigger, a key. And that key may be a wife who calls up and says, by the way, after 15 or 30 years of marriage, I'm taking the kids and I'm leaving. Or these guys, the wife has found out that the husband's had some sexual addictions, or whatever the case may be, something triggers that. And this isn't uncommon. We've had over the course of the years, we've seen drivers come in to talk with our chaplains, and the chaplain will be able to minister to them. And in this case, they're able to do it through sharing some biblical foundational things that have helped them, because what most people don't understand is religion is an excellent and often used coping mechanism for stress, depression, and anxiety. 9 out of 10 Americans turned to their faith following 9/11. Why? Because they knew subconsciously that's where they needed to go. Our chaplains can help them deal with the immediate issue, which is maybe they're feeling suicidal, maybe they're feeling that depression. I know that one chaplain will share a story that a gentleman came in, he sat down, he talked with him, the gentleman went back to his truck, he came in with a pistol, unloaded, and handed him the bullets and said, you know how close I was to killing myself. We've seen at truck stops, and it wasn't all that long ago, I think it was April 2020 or 2019, where a driver came into the truck stop, and I think it was outside of Knoxville, where he killed 3 WIN employees and then was killed in the parking lot. There's so much pressure going on that it doesn't take much for these guys to have a trigger set them off, and they feel a sense of hopelessness and not being able to help their family, and we're there to help them get through those times of difficulty. So yes, they can connect with a chaplain will care for the immediate need. If there's a deeper set need that is there, then the chaplain will make arrangements for them to meet with a professional counselor that can help them get through some of the struggles that they're having, and work with them at that. We saw a lot of depression when one of the largest trucking companies in the country went out and left their guys stranded at the truck stops. And so, we try to help them not only from a physical aspect or behavioral aspect and a spiritual aspect, but we have a Truckers Life Foundation where when guys become members of what we call the International Christian Trucking Association, which we have, money goes into that foundation that helps these drivers be able to get home in an emergency or be able to meet a need that they have. And so our chaplains are, like I said, Tom, our chaplains are trained and they are ready to deal with these kind of issues.
That's fantastic. Ron, we've got just a little over a minute left. Let's go back again. If somebody wants to reach out to you and send you a note or talk about how to get more information or whatever, we've got the Truckers Life at TNCRadio.LIVE email address available. Also, there's the website about TFC. Where can they go to learn more about TFC?
They can go to www.tfcglobal.org, and they can go onto our website and they can learn, about what we do, how they can become involved in ministry, or what we can do for their families. And so I would suggest they go to the website and they can connect us there. Like I said, they can call us if they have a need. They can reach us at 717-426-9977, or they can email us.
Yeah, give us that phone number again one more time.
That phone number is 717-426-9977.
Okay. And they can email us and reach you that way too. So there's a lot of different ways to reach out. We'd love to hear from you. And so feel free to reach out to us. So coming forward, Ron, we've got a lot of different opportunities. We're going to be talking to people within the industry. We're going to be talking to drivers who, well, they've seen the worst of times and they've seen much better times. This is a weird time for all of our drivers. You're not alone. You are not alone. And that's the number one message that we can give to you today. You're not alone. And we look forward to talking with you and talking about the issues that really matter. And that's what this show is going to be all about. So continue to tune in. Catch our podcasts available on Monday mornings. And you're listening to TNCRadio.LIVE. This is the Trucker's Life. Ron, I know that next week we'll be having Derek from TFC here talking about human trafficking. What's coming up after that?
We will be having with us Tom Wolf, and we'll be talking to him and his wife. He was a professional driver for a number of years, is now a counselor, and we want to talk about the marriage situation in the trucking industry. The week after that, we will have Doug Smith, who is with Covenant Trucking, come share his life and testimony and how he went from having nothing to working at Covenant. The following week after that, we are going to have Brad Huddleston, and Brad is going to share with us about the digital cocaine issue in our country today and how that is affecting the trucking industry and the general population. And then in November 1st, we are going to have Ellen Boyer, who is the head of Women in Trucking, and we are going to talk about that very issue, what it's like to be a woman in trucking and what it takes to become a woman in trucking. So we encourage you to stay tuned over the next few weeks and join us to hear what these amazing people have to share with us.
Sounds great, Ron. I hope you all enjoyed the show. Please send feedback and questions to TruckersLife at TNCRadio.LIVE. Stay tuned.